A Biden blunder once again has world leaders in shock. Yesterday, during the president's rare press conference, he seemed to give Russia his blessing for an invasion into Ukraine. Watch.
Russia will be held accountable if it invades, and it depends on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and then we end up having a fight about what to do and not do, et cetera.
That comment has confused and upset people across the globe, including our own left-wing media.
Officials in this country and very likely in Russia tonight are wondering, did President Biden just give Vladimir Putin a green light to launch an invasion into or around them?
I mean, to say, Erin, that they were displeased when they heard those comments would be an understatement. One of the officials that I spoke to said that he was shocked when he heard President Biden draw a distinction between an incursion and an invasion.
Russia's going to pounce on that phrase during diplomatic talks, which are set to begin Friday, because this could be interpreted as minimizing the type of attack or putting limits on what the U.S. may do.
We're already seeing the cleanup. I'm already seeing in my text exchanges with people around the president, cleanup on Isle State Department going on right now.
Biden seen as weak from Russia, China, and our allies on Afghanistan. If he is seen as being weak on Ukraine, we will be back here 6 months from now talking about that minor incursion into Taiwan.
And impeachment. Oh my God, Joe Scarborough's sounding like a Republican again. Boring! So will Russian President Vladimir Putin try to capitalize on this moment of confusion? And if President Biden's perceived weakness becomes dangerous, will our allies destroy us? Here with me now, former CIA officer and Portman Square Group Chairman and CEO, Mike Baker is back.
Hello.
Hello, Baker.
Hello. Yes, that was quite the press conference, and I'm glad that we're talking about this minor incursion guy. I thought that was going to slip under the radar for a lot of people, and I'm glad to see it didn't, because when you're talking about a global crisis that could potentially involve large-scale military conflict that could drag the entire world into it, you'd like to think that your leaders, in this case the U.S. president, would be very clear and concise, would be very, very careful on what they say. President Biden's problem was he started free-forming.
Freestyling.
Right?
That's when he gets into trouble. You're absolutely right.
And so he said this, and look, what he was referencing isn't incorrect, which is everything has to be appropriate response. So if what they do is a cyber attack, we have to have, you know, an appropriate response in our playbook.
We're not dropping daisy cutters on Red Square.
Exactly.
Okay.
But he doesn't say that. He says minor incursion. Now, everything is important in the global context. So you know, the comment that someone like President Xi is watching and thinking about their own timeline as far as Taiwan goes, that's very legitimate. So that's why you had everybody from the Democratic playbook, including James Carville, come out today and try to mop this up. And, you know, but look, the bigger problem is we haven't dealt with this over the past, few months. We haven't dealt with this appropriately. If we want to stop Putin, the one way you stop Putin from engaging in this sort of adventurism is to be smart about our own energy policy. I know this sounds disconnected, but right now oil's at $85 a barrel. He can afford the saber rattling. He can afford to do this sort of activity.
That's the only. That's their only revenue source.
That is all they're
oil.
doing. Right.
And now that it's expensive, they're getting more money.
Right.
So you've got three different senators who have three different plans. Ted Cruz wants to punish the company that's most active in building the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Then you have Bob Menendez, who wants to punish some of Putin's lackeys, and Marco Rubio wants to go after Putin himself.
Yeah.
Which of those three are the most successful options?
Well, I think first and foremost, we should have been already. We shouldn't be talking about what we might do as far as arming the Ukrainian military. We should have been providing them with the strategic weaponry that they need, right? And we should have been doing that for quite some time.
Biden says we gave him $600 million worth of stuff, and that's enough.
Right. Yeah. But we're talking about more, and we're talking about more specific weapons. Stingers, as an example, anti-tank weapons. And we should have been ramping that up months and months ago. The economic sanctions that President Biden is very fond of talking about, we should have already imposed a handful of the more serious ones, not removing them from the SWIFT system, the financial system with access to dollars. That's sort of the nuclear, financial sanction, but put some others on. But most importantly, again, this energy policy issue. Yes, we should strong-arm Germany and the EU and say, no, Nord Stream 2 is not coming online. Well, we have that ability if we wanted to use it, right? We don't have to be friends with everybody all the time. Germany would understand.
Why do
right?
they get pipelines and ours get shut down?
Yeah,
that's what I don't understand.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. If the Biden administration would get on board with the understanding that you can do green energy efforts and also fossil fuels at the same time, we should never have taken ourselves off the playing field as far as energy independence. Because when oil is $30 or $40 a barrel, Putin can't afford to do what he's doing. He's got to direct his limited resources to keeping his population happy and not having them all turn on him and go, you know, you've been around here a little bit too long.
Yeah, and they'll do it. Oh, believe I know those those former commies. Before you go, I want to ask you about Havana syndrome. It's obviously the mysterious condition that has reportedly been causing headaches, memory problems, dizziness, but just for U.S. diplomats. First started in 2016. 26 diplomats and their families working in Cuba have talked about that. Since then, more than 200 cases reported across the world. Some experts say it's caused by a secret new weapon from a foreign power. But the CIA says that is unlikely. It's not a malicious act that occurred to harm diplomats. In most cases can be attributed to medical or environmental factors. Excuse me. Many critics, it's that time. Many critics and victims of Havana syndrome disagree. Is the CIA covering something up?
Yeah, look, this is a very important story. It's a very complex story, and I'm very glad that you've got this covered right now. There's also Canadian diplomats that have been victims of these injuries.
America's top hat, sure.
Look, and there's an investigation that's ongoing. The CIA's initial response to this, back when it first came out, and the first victims started talking about some of these injuries, their initial response wasn't very good. It wasn't very proactive. It wasn't very responsive. It's gotten much, much better, along with the other departments, state and defense, others who are involved in the investigation. What I'm concerned about is I don't understand exactly why the CIA felt they needed to come out with a unilateral interim report right now while the investigation's ongoing.
It's not done, right?
And I don't know to what degree they coordinated with others. But look, these injuries are very serious. I have talked to, in the course of, you may have heard of Black Files Declassified. It's on Discovery.
Fantastic show, hosted by the one and only Mike Baker.
Second season is going to launch in early March. But we talk about this and we cover this extensively. I've talked with some of the victims of Havana syndrome. I've talked with some of the scientists working on this. It is legitimately, and it's been classified as such, traumatic brain injury that we're talking about here. So this is a serious issue. You will not, and I have not seen anything, including this report from the CIA, that has shifted me off the position that we're talking about a foreign state actor here that's engaged in not an effort to injure people, but I suspect, have developed a directed energy weapon, probably microwave technology, that is designed to collect data, information off of electronic devices, your laptop, your smartphone, and a result is that they have gotten these injuries. I don't want to say it's Russia, but Russia's got a long history, as you know, of not worrying about collateral damage in their intel collection efforts. So this is an important story. I hope people pay attention to it.
I hope so, too, and I hope the story doesn't go away because the CIA, we can't trust those people.
This is where we're going to differ on that one. But anyway.
I do appreciate your honesty and your position, and hopefully, someone will get to the bottom of it, probably you. On your
and you know
show.
what? I wish I could stick around for drinks later on, but I'm not able to.
Woo! It's Thursday night.
I'm going to get you on TV saying I get a rain check.
Yeah, you got a rain check. A gin martini check.
Dad, I got a rain check.
Some raining martinis. Don't get me an umbrella. All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.